Have you ever struggled with seeing things in a positive light? When things are coming up, does your brain automatically go to, why is this happening to me? Am I the only one who can't have success here? And before you know it, you go down this negative thought spiral where in reality, it's not getting you to show up the way that you truly want to. Well, if the answer is yes, that is exactly where I was before I became a part of the DAT Edge Alliance. Over about a 2.5 year process, I learned a skill that you're going to learn here today that helped me transform my ability to think and find the positive, to find the reframes, and more importantly, when to do it and when not to. That helped me start to create more of what I wanted in my life instead of creating more of what was actually holding me back. Because believe it or not, what you focus on grows. And if you're focused on all the problems, all the reasons, the things that are broken, wrong, or missing, you will actually go out and manifest more of what's broken, wrong, or missing. But if you focus on the potential, when you focus on the possibilities, when you focus on the best life that you want to create, you will go out there with the energy that you need to actually create it. But it's not as easy as just saying, hey, you know what? Just think more positively, which is what I initially thought it was. It's developing the skills and then the confidence to take action on it and learn that you can retrain your brain to start seeing the positives in things and actually get yourself to show up, to actually manifest and create more of that in your life. And if you're ready to do that with us here on this inner circle call, we have to start off. With reminding ourselves of what we're fighting for. So if you're ready to do that with us, let's go.
Welcome to the Inner Circle. We are proud to be on this mission with you. What mission is that? We believe that you don't have to sacrifice one area of your life to have massive success in business. We believe that what you achieve on the outside is a direct result of what you become on the inside. We believe that growing your business should never come at the expense of nurturing your family. We believe taking personal responsibility is the key to changing the outside circumstances. And we believe that your physical and mental health is the most important element to sustain your success. Thank you for being here and for being willing to lean in and be the modern leader the world needs now more than ever. You ready to do this? Let's go.
Guys, what is up? What is up? Hope you didn't hear that.
I feel like it's one of those like bloopers from casters.
So I just got off a 3-hour training, and you heard that right, a 3-hour training, and it lasts until the very last second. And then we're trying to put together all of our new equipment here. I'm not sure if you've noticed, being a part of the Inner Circle, you guys know. We literally have a brand new table, and we're trying to set up the video and the audio and everything, trying to throw everything together while still getting finished with that last call. And let's just say it didn't work out as planned. But we're here because we're going to flip this situation that we're going through around to the positive and really tap into it and teach you how to do that too. Now, before we do, we want to welcome you back here to the call. This is for our Inner Circle people. So grateful to have you here on the team. Brenda, I just saw you a couple of minutes ago, my friend. But this is for our people who want to lean in to not only develop the business and create the business that they truly want to, but also to connect more with their family and also make sure their physical and mental health is on point. And that's what we do inside of the Inner Circle. So pumped up to be able to have these calls with you every other week and to check in and see those green names right there, which to us signifies that you're part of the Inner Circle. And we're just here to do whatever we can to help teach you some of these skills. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to lean in. And without further ado, let's go.
All right.
So here's how best I want to get started with this. I actually just want to check in with something and get you guys to type something in the chat for me in answer to this question I'm about to ask you. And that is, what is something that we should celebrate today? So what is something that we should celebrate today? Maybe it is a new skill you implemented. Maybe it was doing something difficult that you didn't think you could do. Maybe it's some positive momentum that you're seeing. Maybe it's an action that you've taken. Maybe it's something that your family has done in response to you showing up and modeling the behavior to them. So what is something that we as a team today should actually celebrate? And I want to hear from you guys in the chat. What is something that we should celebrate today? Now, there is some reason why I'm asking this, but I want to hear in the chat. What is something that we should celebrate today? What do you think? What is something you can celebrate today?
that I get to do this with you.
What?
Yeah, like it's really amazing that, we can be here home. It is a Saturday. We are doing work, but it doesn't like necessarily feel like work, even though like sometimes we feel a little bit off because, things just are off sometimes. But the fact that like we're doing this full time is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to celebrate that today.
Okay. High five. Yes. All right. So Brenda says, taking care of my future life. I love it, Brenda. I love it. She was just on that call with us. Love to hear everyone else. So what is it that we should celebrate for you today? Cheryl says, I declutter my stairwell basket that I have been procrastinating to do. Yes. And it's crazy. Like once you do that, like the energy that you have to tackle other things too, right? I made a super shy student LOL today. I love it. I love it, Tina. Finding ways to get them to like unlock that that inner child that they have, right? Mike says, I'm finally getting in a better place with my mindset. I love it, brother. I love it, man. I really think that today's workshop is going to help you a lot, Mike. So I want you guys to think about this real quick. So what I did right there is I asked you a very specific question, and I want you to check in with how your energy is now that I asked you that question. Because you could have had like something that you were focused on before this call that maybe was pulling from your energy. Maybe you're like, well, should I make this call? Do I have the time right now? Like it's Saturday. Like, what if I just did this instead? And those head voices are very easy to take over, but something got you to jump on the call, and then something got you to respond to this question. Julie, good afternoon, my friend. By the way, it's morning here. You got to come to the West Coast, my friend. But something got you to answer this question. What is something we should celebrate today? And I want you to check in with that energy. And the reason why that's so important is because when you check into that energy you're going to use to move forward in this call, but you're also going to use it when it comes to when you're finished this call, you're going to take it with you into the rest of the areas of your life. So when we think about what we're going to be talking about today, which is a process we call Flip It, it's something that was taught to me inside of my mastermind team. When you learn this process, you've got to realize that when your brain goes down the path of positivity, like, or how we just talked about right now, what is something we should celebrate? You're not just throwing like, I don't know, sugar like sugar on top of poop, right? You're not doing that to make it just seem like it's better than it is. What you're doing is you're creating something else different. You're focused on what is something that I can celebrate. And when you do that and you refocus your mind, you've got to ask yourself, how does that create the energy that will get me to show up and create and do the things that I need to do? And that's what it's about. It's about shifting your energy. I remember hearing that it was like an old saying. It was about like two wolves are on your shoulder, and like one's the good wolf and one's the bad wolf. And the son was like, Dad, which one is going to survive? And he's like, the one you feed, right? And so the more that you focus on one, the more that it's going to overtake everything that you do. And the more that you focus on what's broken, wrong, or missing, or your head voice, what we term inside of our life coach certification, the more that you're going to find evidence that there's more broken, wrong, or missing. But I want you to not just think about that. I want you to think about the energy that you bring to everything that you touch at that point. That's why being able to do what we're going to be teaching you guys here today is so powerful, because it'll help you tap into this energy and it will give you the greatest opportunity to succeed. Notice that I didn't say that it's going to make you succeed by default. Because when we approach things, when we try things, nobody knows 100% that it's going to work. But when it comes to the energy that we bring to it, the thing that gives us the most likeliest opportunity to actually achieve it is the energy that we want to put into that, right? And that is how we think about things. Now, the reason why this training was taught to me is because they had this, they were looking at these articles on social media and the news, those kind of things. And what they found is there was a certain percentage of articles that were written in a negative light. Now there were 44,000 like of these that they surveyed. And they looked at 44,000 news articles, social media articles, those kind of things, blogs. What percentage of them do you think was focused on the negative, on what they called the human deficit? What percentage of that? do you guys think? I want to challenge you with your thoughts and see what you think when it comes to how many of these articles were in a negative light versus a positive light. What do you guys think? I know it takes a few minutes here to kind of go back and forth. Cheryl says 95%, very close, a little bit higher. What else? Do we have any more? We got a 95%. What do you think? Did you look at my notes?
I am looking at your notes.
What? 80%, Michael, too low. 75%, way too low. 98% of these articles were focused on the human deficit. 98%. And the reason why is because when we think about the things that get our attention, that's usually what happens in media, social media, the news, is focusing on the deficit, focusing on what's broken, wrong, or missing. Do you know why? It is in our psychology that we want to be able to stay safe. We want to continue to survive. Anything that challenges us potentially staying alive is going to immediately be brought to the forefront of our mind, and we're going to be like, I need to pay attention to this. That's why they do that in the media, and they don't focus on all the beautiful things that are happening outside. They're focusing on the tornadoes and the destruction and all that stuff, because when you're focused on that, you get more eyeballs. But this is also why your brain, most of our brains, are predetermined wanting to focus on what's broken, wrong, or missing, because it's like, this is dangerous. So to start this off, like, I want to make sure you understand that your brain works like this because it's supposed to keep you alive. It's supposed to work this way. All right, there's nothing wrong with you. If you focus more on the negative than the positive, welcome to being a human and having a brain and wanting to survive. The problem is what we are tackling in our society nowadays is not life and death. Talking in front of a group, being on stage, asking people if they want to buy something, having a deep conversation with our kids or our spouse, setting boundaries. We are not going to die if we do those things. But our brain will trick us into thinking so. It will trick us into thinking all of the negative things that could potentially happen, because now if it can convince us, then we don't have to do those uncomfortable things. But our brain is literally archaic. And we as life and performance coaches are trying to like evolve out of this. But right now, most of society doesn't even know this is happening. And so what happens is it captures our mind and it wants us to focus on what's broken, wrong, or missing. But what happens is, and this is what we were talking about earlier, is the energy that you will now bring into everything you touch is more focused on broken, wrong, or missing in that negative energy. And that energy will bring you down further and further and further. This is like the opposite of the compound effect. You know, when you're like making small positive adjustments, these are small negative adjustments. And it adds up really, really quickly. That's why we have to get good at being able to flip it. All right. Now, when I say flip it, I just want to make sure that you guys understand this. When I say flip it, I don't mean everything in your life should go from a negative to a positive. In my life coach certification, they taught me that life is 50-50. You're going to have 50% of great experiences and 50% of quote unquote negative experiences. It's the way that you and all of us live. It's just that our 50% is going to be different than your 50%. But whether you have $1 in your bank account or $100 million in your bank account, your life is still 50-50. It's just a different 50-50. You're worried about things that they're not worried about and vice versa. And so being able to like understand, there's times when you do want to flip it. When you ask yourself, how do I want to show up? And you want to show up for your family on point. You want to create more income. You want to make more impact in your business. You want to take those steps so you can get back into physical shape, right? You want to be a leader that you want to be at work. When a situation pops up, those give you an opportunity to flip it. But let's say you lose somebody in your life. You're going through something very traumatic. You have a situation that happens that you don't want to feel good about. Yes, it's not time to flip it. We still do want to have a framework, though, to be able to work through those other times. Because believe it or not, most of the things that do happen to us are the things that if we flipped it, we would be able to like literally transform our lives. And those bigger things, we find a coach like Mark and Teresa, and we help them, or they help us process pain, figure out the family manual or the relationship manual they have, and all the other skills that we've learned as like master coach instructors. You can lean into those. But for all the other times, having some type of framework like this flip it is a real game changer. All right. So we talked about a little bit about why our brain does this. Now let's talk about like the solution to it. All right. Solution. So there's 3 parts to this framework. All right. 3 parts to it. Type in the chat. Okay. Part 1 is what's called find it. Okay. Now here's what I mean is when you're going through a situation, and I'm going to actually take you through a situation right now that maybe you have a negative feeling towards. All right. You're going through a situation. A lot of times what our brain will do is we'll get us to focus on the problem, right? Now, if somebody is like in the positivity movement, they're just going to say, think positively about it. That's also not helpful at all either. It's kind of like putting Band-Aid on a broken arm. So instead, what we want to do is we actually want to find out what it is that thing that is causing us to like feel triggered, feel negative, right? So we first start off by finding it. And how we do that is we ask ourselves, what's the problem? What's the problem? This helps us identify what the actual problem is. And I'll give you an example in a minute. Now, once we have that problem, we want to what's called flip it. What flipping it means is like asking yourself, what do I really want? It's not telling yourself, let's think positive about this. It's actually flipping it and going, okay, this is what I have. I'm unhealthy. I have no leads for my business. Now flipping it and going, what do I want? I want to be able to make more impact. I want to be able to lose weight so I can play with my kids. I want to be able to, can you just feel the energy change just from this one part? Instead of being focused on what's broken, wrong, or missing, you're now focused on solutions because your brain can only focus on problems or solutions. It can't keep going down the path of problems and then have a solution just automatically appear. You have to program your brain to go, okay, that's great. I know what the problem is. What do I really want? It's crazy when you just flip this part of it, right? Now, once you do that, we want you to take it to the 3rd step, which is elevate it, okay? Now, what I was taught is like, you want to ask yourself a question that helps you, like inspires you to create like peak performance and possibilities. So let me give you an example of how we would do this, all right? So let's say my kids didn't want to come down for dinner time, right? They're all on their iPads or Xboxes. They don't even play their iPads anymore. They're on their Xboxes, or my son's on his phone, whatever it is, right? And they're going through that process. And I'm like, why aren't these kids listening to us? Well, first off, that's a terrible question. Don't ever ask that don't ever ask that, because there's only negative responses to that, right? That is being a question focused on the deficit. But if I were to say, what's the problem? Then I'd be like, okay, the problem is the kids aren't coming down for dinner time. That's the problem, all right? That's what the problem is. Anything that I make it mean is not really the problem. That's just my thoughts and stories around it. But when I think about it, I'm like, okay, it's dinner time. I've asked the kids to come down and they're not coming. So the next thing would be, let's flip it, Mark. What do you really want? And what I really want is I want my kids to listen when it's dinner time so they can come downstairs so that Teresa and I aren't sitting here going, our food's getting cold, and they're still like upstairs playing, right? And this is a fictitious thing. This never happened. We're not speaking about it. So flipping it would be like, okay, what do I want? I want them to come downstairs and to listen first time so that we're not like sitting here eating cold food. Now, that'd be a good first step, but that doesn't feel super inspiring to me. But if I try and elevate it, now here's the thing, like, first off, you might not be super good at this in the beginning. This took me a lot of time to be able to really ask myself powerful questions. But I would ask myself, what would make it so exciting for them that they run down the stairs and they jump into their seats and they can't wait to start dinner? Now, when I ask myself that question, what it does is, first off, it's not a statement, because a statement means that whatever is contained in that statement is the answer. And if it doesn't work, you're kind of screwed. But when it's a question, it's infinite answers. It's like, I can try this one, but if it doesn't work, I can try this one, and I can try this one, and I can try this one. And now my brain goes to the solution, which is, what can I do to get them so inspired and excited to jump down here, to run down the stairs and to sit down? And I remember when I actually had this, because I had this problem actually come up, believe it or not.
I thought you said we didn't.
Yeah, I cannot tell a lie. I cannot tell a lie. But we had this, and I was like, what if what we did is we told them we were going to play a game. And whoever came down first, got to pick the seat that they sat in. And whoever seat they sat in, they had to act like that person for the rest of the dinner time. And so I told them this. And when it came to be dinner time, they came downstairs. It was pretty quick. I think my son, he was he in my seat? Like, was Andrew? Okay. I forget who was where, but like somebody was pouring hot sauce on everything because apparently that's what I do. Somebody was like bumping themselves on the table because that's apparently what Teresa does all the time. But it was the most fun dinner ever. And it solved the problem. Check it out. It created more connection with us. We had a great dinner time, and it solved the problem of getting them to come downstairs. And so when you're focused on things like this, you can ask yourself, okay, what's the problem? What do I really want? And how can I ask myself a question that will inspire like great ideas and peak performance, get people so excited about doing those things? And what you come out of that is with answers. I remember also I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna hide things like around the table, or I'm going to ask questions of things that are kind of going on in their games, not in things that I'm doing. And what it did is it sparked so many different great ideas that we had a bunch of ideas to be able to get the kids to come down and to sit at the table and to solve the problem. But I want you to kind of hear this, because it wasn't just solving the problem. It was actually creating more connection, and it gave us more opportunities to have conversations. And also the energy was not negative, it was positive, and it carried on for the rest of the day. So some people ask like, man, that's so much harder to do. And I'm like, yeah, it is, but it's also a much better life to live. When you're focused on creating these kind of things, you're coming up with like great questions to be able to ask yourself, to get yourself to find the solution instead of the problem. Because if you're just focused on the problem, my guess is you're like, I'm going to take this away. If you don't come downstairs next time, like what I'm going to do is your food's going to get it, blah, 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 blah. All the things that like have been, maybe told to me in the past, which does not create connection. And it absolutely does not create a great conversation at the table or anything afterwards, or anybody wanting to spend any time with you. And so when we realize that we actually have the power in those situations to not only solve the problem, but create this level of connection that's on an entirely different level, that is when we have the ability of flipping it, but even making it better than what it would have been if that problem had never even happened. Now, I want to give you one more example of this, because this is something like related to business. And then I want to walk you all through a situation that you might be experiencing right now, a problem that might be coming up, because I want you to practice this and I want to be here to help you. Okay. Now, there was this airlines, I think it was British Airlines. It was back in the 90s. They were struggling with losing people's luggage. Okay. It's not good when you lose people's luggage because they typically don't want to fly with you again. And so one of the things they did is they did like this huge focus. They focused their attention on, why are we losing customers' bags? And you know what happened? Nothing. They kept losing bags. And they're like, what is going on here? We've focused our time and attention on why are we losing people's bags? And like everybody's just infighting and saying it's them. No, it's you. No, it's them. And nobody was coming up with solutions to anything. They were just pointing fingers and they were not taking responsibility. They ended up hiring someone to come in and to help them solve this problem. And what they did is they asked them what the problem was. And they're losing people's baggage. And they're like, well, what do you really want? And they're like, well, we want our people to have a good experience and not lose their luggage. And so they said, I have a question for you. What could you do to make your customers have the best customer experience ever from the time they connected with you and you sold them a ticket to the time they got deboarded the plane and you gave them your luggage? And it was crazy because they were like, we would do this. We would give them an extra blanket. We'd give them an extra pillow. We'd be able to do this. Our website would be better. And they made huge improvements. But do you know what happened? Because when you're creating a great customer experience, you know one thing you don't do? You don't lose people's bags. And so as a result of this problem, not only did they solve the problem of losing people's bags, but they actually made the entire situation even better and made the airline perform even higher. Now, this is the same thing that Southwest had done. that to make it be like one of the top in the world, because instead of being focused on problems and what's broken, wrong, or missing, they focus on what they really want and ask themselves a powerful question that will help inspire them to be not only just to solve that problem, guys. Solving the problem is this, but being able to create that customer experience is this. Okay. And it's the same thing you can do. If you have a business on social media and you're like, I'm just not getting any leads. I just don't know how to post on social media. Well, I got a question. How long is bringing that up and focusing on the problem? How much has that helped you? It didn't help me much. I kind of did it for a couple of years. Why aren't people listening to my podcast, right? And it's because my brain is like everybody else's. I'm focused on what's broken, wrong, or missing. But every solution that I tried to find, because I did try to find solutions, didn't work. I think mostly because of the energy that I had around it. Like I thought there was something wrong with me, or I thought there was something wrong with the other people who were consuming my content. And it was neither of those. It's just what I was making it mean. It's just that my audience didn't want to hear the things that I was talking about, right? And so when I asked myself, what do I really want? Well, I really want to help inspire and to change people's lives. I want to be the hope when they need it the most. When they think it's like this is too hard and maybe they feel like giving up, I want to make sure that I'm there to help them keep going. Because not only is their goal important and not only will it impact the world, but it's important to me for them to be able to fulfill their purpose too. And so when I think about how can I show up in a way that will give me the greatest likelihood to be able to inspire people, to give them the hope when they need it the most, to get them to continue to taking action, because I know at the end of this, there's so much impact, there's so much income, and there's so much family connection that is like off the charts, and you're going to be glad for all the hard work that you put through it. But how can I show up in that respect? And that's when things started to change. That's when I started to show up that way on social media. I started to do podcasts and videos, got our YouTube channel going, because I was more focused on what I wanted to create in the world. I was less focused about people's reaction to it, even though I do take that into play in terms of like adjustments that I make, but I was more focused on what I wanted to create and how that was going to inspire me to perform even higher. And because of that, I think that's a big reason why we're actually here today at this point. Now, are we where we want to be? Heck no. And we still get stuck into all of the problems that are going on. Like today, having a training that's supposed to be an hour and a half be 3 hours, and me being a keynote person on it who's speaking it, so I can't necessarily leave. But like that gives me a great opportunity to even talk about it here. Because if I think about it, I'm like, I want to talk about that here because it's some things that I'm doing that maybe you guys could do too in the future. Maybe the things that I'm doing through that process, I can teach you inside of the inner circle. And if I just thought about what was broken, wrong, or missing, and that I didn't get here on time or anything like that, I wouldn't be able to show up the way that I want to show up for you guys here today. And that's what happens when you start to flip it, is you don't just solve the problem. You take your energy to another level. You inspire so many other people. And you kind of like, I wouldn't want to say recreate, but you create this entire experience that is because of you and your willingness to ask yourself that question and to look for the solution instead of being focused on the problem. So that is how this flip it works. Now, it's not something that instantaneously is going to happen to you all the time. It's something that you're going to have to consciously think about. And I want you to write these steps down. Number one, find it. Ask yourself, what's the problem? Number two, flip it. Ask yourself, what do I really want? And number three, elevate it. I want you to feel inspired by what the question that you ask. What is a way that I can ask myself a question that will help me achieve peak performance and inspire me to take incredible action? And with those three things, I want you to look at anytime a problem comes up, and I want you to use this framework. Now, we talked about earlier, sometimes when this situation doesn't necessarily need to be flipped. You will know when that's the case. When something significant, when some type of trauma or something comes up in that respect, I don't want you to use this framework. But if you're trying to post on social media, you're trying to have a coaching session, you're trying to sell a program or a product, you're trying to have a conversation with your kids, I want you to think about, how do I flip it? And make sure that you lead with that energy when you're solving that problem, rather than the energy of focusing on what's broken, wrong, or missing. Now, here's what I want to do. I want you to type this out as we go, all right? So whatever comes up in your mind as I'm having this conversation, I just want you to throw it. I don't want you to filter it. I just want you to throw it down here into the chat. We want to be able to help guide you through this, because the question part is something that we have perfected to the point where we've done it so many times, we get pretty good at being able to ask questions. But it might be a skill that you don't have yet, and I want to help you practice it here today. So I want you to think about something that you're struggling with, all right? I want you to think about a challenge that you're going through, all right? Now I want you to name it. Name it. I want you to type in the chat, what is the problem? So share with me what the problem is. Type in the chat. It doesn't matter if it's big, doesn't matter if it's small, doesn't matter, right? Like the Amazon guy put your package outside, way beyond your what do you call that? The front porch and the front patio, and now you have to walk outside with no shoes on to get it. Like I don't care how big or how small it is. It's the process that you need to learn. All right. So name it. What's the problem? Okay. Julie said overspending. All right. So everybody else, what is the problem? Let's think about this. What is the problem? I want a couple of these because I need to be able to, we want to be able to work through all of these with you guys. What is the problem? Cheryl says finding potential clients. By the way, I think you didn't get to talk a lot today.
It's okay.
It's okay. I only talked for 3 hours. Apparently my brain wants to keep going. Finding potential clients. Not taking action to what I say I will do 75 to thrive. 5 activities to do daily. Okay. Number 2, let's flip it. What do you want? So I want you to take what you just wrote there, overspending, finding potential clients, not taking action. I want you to flip it. What do you really want? So what comes up when I ask you, what do you really want? Tina says, people not showing up for my workshop. So Tina, what do you really want? Everybody else too. I'm changing my bad habits of not taking action. Okay, so Brenda, one of these things is we want to make sure that we don't beat ourselves up and label things bad or good. They're trying to teach us something. So in this respect, I would say I'm consistently taking my actions in the 75 to Thrive program, right? So we want to be very specific and not beat ourselves up in anything. So Tina says, I want to help as many humans as I possibly can. That already is like elevating it, right? So so when you say, I want to help as many humans, are you saying you want them to show up to the webinar? Because that doesn't necessarily mean they have to show up. Because you could put on a webinar, not have people show up, and then send them to the replay, or having one-on-one conversations with them and helping out as many. So related to that situation, let's ask ourselves, what do we really want? So on that webinar, what do you really want? Julie says, I want freedom to spend. Okay, I love that. Freedom to spend. Now, part 3 is we want to elevate it. So I want you to try this. Come up with a question that will inspire you to achieve peak performance. Period. So come up with a question that will help you when you ask it. It'll actually help you, inspire you to achieve peak performance in this area. Not just get a little bit better, not just like, well, I hope 3 people show up, right? But like, what is a question that you can ask yourself that will inspire you to achieve peak performance? So the problem is to be financially stable enough to become a certified life coach. So thinking about that, like, so what do you want, Michael, right? And it's kind of like you already kind of like built it into that, but ask yourself strictly, what do you want? And keep all the negative like feelings and thoughts and stuff out of it. Because the first part, focusing on the problem, that's where the negativity should come in or could come in. Some of you guys are even positive in the negative part. That's the way you roll, right? And some of us have hard voices like that. But then asking yourself, like, what do you want, right? And then just having what you want. No buts, no anything like that that'll pull from it. I want all the people who sign up to show up, not just 2. And I know that is not how it works, but that is what I want. Okay, I love that. I don't want you to say that that's how it works or not how it works. I want to know what you want, right, Tina? Because when you find out what you want, you can defy the statistics like crazy, my friend. You can defy. If you're captured by what everybody else is telling you, and they're kind of like temporarily living small, or they're just telling you numbers to make themselves feel good, that's not the place you want to be. You want to be in a place like this can inspire you to perform peak performance. Okay, Brenda says, let's see. I'll actually start with Julie. Learn more money management. So Julie, let me give you some ideas here. Okay, so let me scroll up and see what your problem was. Overspending. Second one is freedom to spend. So what is a way that I can learn how to properly save so that I have enough money that I can go out and spend it on as much as possible, and it will never affect my bottom line ever again? Something like that. Or even like, what is something that I can implement that will help me save money so that I can go out and buy this thing that I want and it won't even affect me financially ever? You see, when we start asking ourselves questions like that, then we go like, oh, so what could I do, right? Another way you can think about it is like this. How many people are struggling right now with their finances? What is it going to make possible when I get my finances under 100% of my control? And how many more people am I going to be able to help inspire do the same thing? You see, now it's like, oh, I didn't realize this is actually a business opportunity for me in the fact that I'm not making money. And so when you use those kind of questions, you'll be amazed at what your energy is like when you actually come out the other end. Brenda says, how can I enjoy even more activity in my daily tracker? Yeah, Brenda, I mean, if you want to go down this path where you're like, what you really want is to take action, I want you to think about you could even think about like, how amazing do I feel when I don't feel like doing these things, but I do it anyway? And how will that inspire my kids to do the same? How will me doing things when I'm uncomfortable prove that I'm the brave person that can help other people do it too? You see, what we do is when we ask a powerful question, now we're like, oh, bring it on. 75 to thrive, you ain't nothing, because I'm going to be able to like not only overcome and do those 5 activities, I'm going to blast through them. I'm going to have like the time of my life, but also knowing that the fact that I don't feel like doing it and I do it anyway makes me the perfect person to help other people through it too. And so now this thing, can you see, guys, how this problem now actually becomes the solution to many other things that maybe you have other problems with, but they actually can solve all those problems if you're willing to think about it a little differently, right?
I would also say too, like, how can you simplify it as well? Like, how can I make each of these activities enjoyable?
Mm-hmm.
Like coming up with creative ways on how you can get yourself to actually do those actions by making it fun. It's kind of like related to what we did with our kids. Like, how can we make dinner time fun so that they actually want to come down and participate?
I love it. I love it. I love it. Tina said something here. So her thing was wanting to get more people to show up to the webinar, right? And what she wants is she wants all the people who sign up to show up. And then she went to, how can I continue to show up for the people who are clearly watching? I love that. I love that. But I have something else that I want to throw your way. Tina, how could you make it so dang exciting that everyone who signs up, like, literally can't get themselves to not be on your webinar? Like, it is so exciting. It's going to transform their life so much that they actually feel like, I have to make this webinar and I don't care what happens in my life. I need to be there. Can you see what happens when you start to think of that realm? Why do you think Josh gives bonuses? He gives like thousands of dollars away. Because when you think about this through the lens of, it's called appreciative inquiry, where you think of it through the lens of appreciation of the things that you want to create in your life, and you start asking yourself, how can I make it so exciting that everybody wants to show up? Because they're like, I cannot miss this. Like, literally, they're like, I'm supposed to get married, but like, maybe I could just postpone it for a day. So when you think about that, you think about things you would have never thought about, because you're achieving and inspiring yourself to achieve peak performance. So taking yourself through that, asking yourself that question, that's like what really a lot of times what Teresa and I will do is when we hear somebody and they're struggling with a problem on one of our one-on-one coaching calls, and they're like, yeah, I guess we could do like whatever. And it feels like kind of blah. I like check in with them. I'm like, how does that feel to you? And they're like, it feels okay. I'm like, well, then that's a no. Because we need to inspire some peak performance. And then I can drop a really powerful question and they're like, I've never thought about that. Well, I could do this and this and this. And then before you know it, they have so many different ideas that their other problem is now like, which ones am I going to implement, right? And that's what happens when you inspire that peak performance by asking yourself a powerful question like that. Cheryl says, this just energized me. Let's see. How can I show up with energy on social media in person to create opportunities for engagement? Yes, Cheryl. One question that I ask is, how can I start this video off with so much power and so much energy and hook them in that they cannot exit out of this video before it's at the end? And when I think about that, it just helps me transform the content that I'm teaching, right? It's like, how can I start this post off in a way that will get them to never want to stop reading until they get to the end? And that's what actually, people call it the belief bridge, people call it messaging, but in reality, you're thinking through it in advance and you're asking them, here's a problem that I have, and here's what I want. Now, how can I achieve peak performance? And you can ask yourself that question. And before you know it, you start coming up with things that were like you never would have thought of, right? And these are things that people usually start off a post with, like, I'm a little nervous saying this, but I think I'm just going to come out and say it. So if I start a post like that, how many of you guys are going to keep reading it, right? And it's like, I don't want to admit this, but it's something that I have to. Like these are just things that are like, when I'm thinking about getting people excited and wanting to read this, like I can create that kind of stuff when I'm coming from this place of like, how can I have people so excited, so curious about what I'm talking about? They want to click see more and actually read what I'm saying. And you can do this by asking yourself a question to achieve peak performance. And Cheryl even said that just typing that energized me. That is the energy that we want to lean into. Because if we're just thinking about like fixing like this one thing, like, oh man, I can't social media. So what should I post on social media? Like, that's a basic question. Like, what should I post on social media? I'm like, well, that's kind of blah, because everybody else is asking themselves that question. What is something you can post on social media that will help build the know, like, and trust with you so much because you're actually being the real authentic you and you're bringing your true energy like you do, Cheryl, and you're making Mondays the best day of the week, right? And when you think about that, it just gets you to transform and show up the way that you need to. And you don't have to worry about the problem because that problem will fix itself. And if it doesn't, you just ask yourself a more powerful question next time, or another question, not more powerful, just another question next time that will help you to find that solution, right? But think about like the energy that you bring to those when you ask yourself that level of question, right? So Mike says, I want the money to afford it without feeling like I have to sacrifice something else in my life. Yes, Mike. So a couple of things that come up for me is thinking about in terms of if you have a very specific like thing you want to do, like let's say there's a skill you want to build, there's something that you want to like pour into, right? The thing that we can kind of get into is we think about like the loss that we have when we pay for that thing, but we forget about the loss that we have by not paying for that thing. Did you catch that? It's like there's the loss of what I have to pay for it, my time, my money, my energy. And a lot of people think money is the most important thing. It's really your time and your energy. What we don't forget, what we don't bring up is like the actual loss that you have if you don't do that thing, right? So how we can reframe this is something related to what you want to be able to do as a result of having that skill, right? How can the fact that I find a way to make this happen actually not only help empower me to get through these kind of things myself, but also grow a business that now I can talk about all these things that I've been through and empower other people, and at the same time, become financially free because I'm doing that. You see, so many times when we're in the middle of the struggle and we focus on the problem, it just gets us more of that problem. But when we're in the problem and we realize there's another perspective that we can look at, how this can actually empower people, how this is maybe the thing that has been pushing you forever and forever, and you've been kind of like pushing back and maybe listening to your head voice like I did for 2.5 years and not doing the skill, not leaning into the skill, right? And it's like anything that we do to convince ourselves because of this and this and this, it's just building up all the evidence of what's broken, wrong, or missing, and we're never going to do it. But when we think about the power on the other side, like what is finding a way going to make possible for me? Now, I know we kind of talked about money, like in that respect, but I also don't want you to forget that that's the smallest part of things that you'll gain when you actually learn skills, especially when it comes to like skills around asking questions, around life coaching, around performance coaching, around using your brain for you instead of against you. Because that's the smallest thing is you'll gain is money. I was just talking on the Master Coach and Training call today. So I have a Master Coach training program that I run. And like when I brought some of the master coaches who are on our team who have made some really significant income and they've had the same struggles. I don't know how I'm going to pay for this. I don't know how I'm going to have enough time. I have all these other things going on, and they got through it and they actually did it. And they didn't just join, they actually went all in, and the results that they've gotten. And I remember at the end of this one, both Chelsea and Trish talked about this, and also Gedeen did too. They were talking about like the money is awesome, but the person that I become, I would never give that back in a second. And I feel the same way for me, because I know some of you guys know this, is that I became a certified life coach, and I didn't go obviously through our school because our school didn't exist, but I paid almost $20,000 to do that. The truth is I didn't have any money to do it. I had to put it on a credit card. 42 days afterwards, because I'm an action taker, I can get myself to take action, I had paid that off. And then every month and year and decade after that, it's going to be paying me back dividends. But that's not even the best part of the equation. The person that I became and the person that I now get to show up with in front of my kids and in front of my beautiful wife here, in front of you guys, is something that I would give all the money back just to acquire this, because it's the life that you get to live forever. And so when you can reframe this as what, like, not only by doing this, what opportunity does it give me when it comes to finances, but what opportunity does it present that will help me solve so many other problems that I'm experiencing in my life that honestly money won't solve. But being able to like really understand how the brain works, tapping into using this flip it, but also being able to use some of the different skills if you decided to actually become a life coach is so powerful, because you get to bring that with you everywhere you go. And so guys, thinking about this whole like strategy around flip it, it is extremely powerful for you to do, but it takes practice and it takes some work. And of course, you guys are in the inner circle. If you have something like this come up and you need some help with this, I would love for you to post it inside of the app. I would love this next week for you to think about how you can utilize this, but also when you do utilize it, come into the app and share it with everybody. Go to the Tactical Accountability Squad home and say, based off of the training, here's what came up for me, a situation this week. This is the problem. This is what I wanted. And this is how I asked myself a question. Whether it's you just want to share because it's so beneficial when everybody else gets to hear it, or you just want to be like, I'm struggling with finding a great question. Can somebody help me? That's the purpose of our team. So definitely jump in, utilize this as much as you can. And then of course, plug into us, plug into the team, because we're here to help you so that you can flip it. Because sometimes our limiting beliefs will prevent us from being able to see that other way of flipping it. That's why we have a team. That's why we have people that we can help. And of course, if you need additional help, you want some additional one-on-one support or a small group like our Success Pod, that's the reason why we put those together, because some people want the speed boost to be able to do that. But regardless, want to make sure that you know that you have a human brain. It's supposed to do that, but we can rewire it to learn how to flip it automatically. All right. That being said, guys, I want to hear from you. What was your biggest insight from this call? And what is the smallest action that you can take to move forward? So what's your biggest insight from this call? And what is a small action that you can commit to taking after this call? And we're going to get the question of the day. So while you guys are chatting, while you guys are answering that, we're going to pull a card. And for everybody who doesn't know, we pull a card from time to time on all of our workshops. And these are cards that you can either ask yourself, ask your significant other, or ask your kids, because it's all about creating great connection and great conversations. And this channel is all about family-driven entrepreneurs who don't just make a big impact when it comes to our business and the amount of income that we're making, but also connect deeper with our family. And that's why we have today's question. And it is a good one. You want to read it?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, so the question is, what are you afraid of and why?
Oof.
What are you afraid of and why?
So I'd love for you to ask this of your family at dinner, but I'd love for you to answer it first. Because sometimes the first person to answer that is the most powerful of all, because it gives your kids permission to answer it for themselves too. Sometimes they don't even think that you're afraid of anything. Sometimes they think you're like Superman, Superwoman, whatever, and you're able to like tackle everything. This is definitely what I'm going to ask today. So what are you afraid of and why? I'm going to share that with them and we'll see like what comes up for them. We also want to hear what comes up for you. So as we go, we have Brenda. She says, flipping the problem and creating an impact transformation. I'm creating more excitement from this moment forward. I love it, Tina. I love it, Brenda. Great job, you two. All right. So I definitely want to hear what you're committed to doing. Obviously, focusing on the flip it, really important thing. Have some way of checking in, whether you every single day ask yourself, did I have a situation where I had an opportunity to flip it and I didn't? Did I flip something today? And I actually did a great job of doing it. And I want you to keep track of that. Cheryl says, lean into the powerful energy each time before I reach out. 100%, Cheryl, using this kind of like energy and reaching out is going to help you create that connection that you truly want because you're leaning into this energy, right? I know, Cheryl, you went to an event. Cheryl's a part of our success pod. So we're talking to her about like the event that she was going to. So one of the things that we can do based off of the next event is like not only the things you learned from the previous event, but also how can you like prepare yourself and be like the most like not only excited, but be and bring your energy and really like be the most helpful coach that you can possibly be in that environment without having to tell everybody what you do for a living. Like people like the whole give me your elevator pitch. I'm like, show me your elevator pitch. That's where my brain goes, is how can I actually show them that I'm the coach that can help them and impact their lives forever? And when I ask myself that question, I'm like, game on. And I just go into an environment like that. And I do show up the way that I truly want to, because I program my brain to ask myself that question of how can I actually show them that I'm a powerful coach that can help them through what it is that they're going through. When I do that, I just show up that way. Do I still make mistakes? Obviously, I still make mistakes, but the energy that I have it with, it's just on an entirely different level. So, all right, guys, great job. By the way, how do you guys like the new table? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I have to find the angle.
Well, for sure. And we had to have Teresa sit on a pillow because otherwise it was like I was up here and then she was like really down here. But I am curious what everybody thinks of it. So let us know. Let us know what you think about the new table. Got a little bit of an upgrade. But guys, lastly, I just want to say thank you so much for always leaning in, for being willing to have these conversations, to attack these problems and thinking about it in terms of like, how do I flip it? How do I elevate it? How do I ask myself a peak performance question to get myself to show up the way that I want to? Because it's not always easy. Like we all go through things. And if we're not going through things, it's because we're actually going through a crisis, I believe. And it's just the way that life is. And when we have the tools and the confidence and the community to be able to help support us through it, I truly believe we can get through anything, and anything can make us stronger. I appreciate you for leaning in and for being willing to fight that fight, because so many people aren't. But you doing it is actually proof that they can do it too. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for leading from the front. And we'll see you guys inside the app and on the next call. Bye, everybody.
Bye.